Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, brought to you as always by Lay of the Land, where you join me every Monday to Thursday and we take a look at those top stories making headlines. Of course, we are on day 81 of Israel's war against Hamas. We all want the return immediately of our 129 hostages. So before we take a look at the headlines, I just want to ask you, did you have a good Christmas, a good day with your family? I know for many of you around the world, it is Boxing Day. Here in Israel, it is business as usual. So let's get into those top stories. You can hear the neighborhood dog having a lot to say about his opinions, so please excuse the barking, but he is a very opinionated canine. What can we say? Israel's a democracy. All voices are welcome, human and canine. So let's begin with news that both Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad have refused an Egyptian brokered offer for a ceasefire. Now remember this, because around the world we have heard increased voices demanding ceasefires, never of the perpetrator, which is Hamas, but always of the victim, which is Israel. We can't forget how this war started with the massacre committed against Israel on the 7th of October, which saw 1,300 people mercilessly slaughtered, mutilated and raped, and over 250 at the time taken hostage inside the Gaza Strip. So yes, we have it confirmed that Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad turned down the offer for a ceasefire. One of the criteria was that democratic elections would be held or that the Strip would be given over to the control of the Palestinian Authority. Prime Minister Netanyahu has penned an article for the Wall Street Journal, and in it he says, for a permanent ceasefire, 3 things need to happen. First, the Gaza Strip would have to become demilitarized. Second, we would have to see the return of all hostages. Now, this would also include the bodies of hostages that have been kept in the Gaza Strip, as well as Hisham Sayed and Avera Mengistu, who have been held hostage for 7 years by Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip, and the bodies of fallen soldiers Hadar Golden and Orun Shaul. He also says that an end to Hamas is also criteria. The IDF continue their military campaign inside the Gaza Strip, moving further and further south. And of course, as they move further and further, so they share with us what they are finding as they go door to door, building to building. Yesterday, the IDF exposed that in the Indonesian hospital, they had found a Toyota Corolla with Israeli number plates, as well as remnants of RPGs inside the car and quite a bit of blood. The blood is believing to be matched to the late Samer Talalka. He is one of the 3 hostages that were killed by the IDF in a horrific mistake. Both the leader of the National Unity Party, Benny Gantz, and President Herzog have met with the Talalka family to offer their condolences. Earlier today, the IDF had exposed what they had found in a child's bedroom inside the Gaza Strip. They found grenades, bazookas, Kalashnikovs, Israeli license plates, RPG heads and other explosives. I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. I shouldn't be shocked by now, but every time I get a notification, as journalists do, from the IDF, I'm continually shocked at what we are finding. When we say that the Hamas terrorists are embedded well within the civilian infrastructure, this is exactly what we are talking about. This is an absolute war crime, and something that the international community should be demanding that we have justice, if not carried out by ourselves, at least at the International Criminal Court. Iran have threatened that Israel will pay. This is following the elimination of a top Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps official, Sayed Mousavi, in Damascus, Syria yesterday. They say when the time is right, Tel Aviv will pay. Now, in a very interesting article published by the New York Post earlier today, they expose how Gazans are talking about how UNRWA, that's the United Nations Relief Work Agency, are not just complicit in working with Hamas, but they are in control of everything because Hamas controls everything. They talk about how the humanitarian aid is not disseminated, that members of UNRWA are in fact Hamas terrorists. Quite extraordinary. Now, one thing this war has exposed is just how complicit aid organizations like UNRWA and various others, even the World Health Organization and even the Red Cross, who refuse to hand over medications to our hostages, are in working with Hamas. Just over the weekend, the Red Cross announced that they would be hiring the former director of UNRWA as their director general. I mean, this was a man who was up for investigation, internal investigation for ethical mismanagement and sexual harassment. And what do you know? He will now be heading up the International Red Cross. The International Red Cross does have a history with the Jews. The International Red Cross turned a blind eye during the Holocaust and tried to cover up the crimes of the Nazis when they visited places like Theresienstadt, and of course the rest we know is history. Earlier today, the United Nations requested that the Kerem Shalom crossing, this is the crossing between Israel into northern Gaza, be closed, they say, due to logistical issues on the Gazan side. This is a very, very important point to remember, because the United Nations have continuously criticized Israel for not allowing in enough aid. They say Israel should be letting in more and more aid. Israel is letting aid. Our criteria is that we have the ability to inspect the aid to ensure that nothing is being smuggled in that would help Hamas in their war against Israel and Israeli civilians. And on the weekend, our President Herzog, issued a rare rebuke of the United Nations, calling them utterly useless in their ability to ensure that civilians inside the Gaza Strip receive the humanitarian aid that they deserve. Humanitarian pauses have been a demand of the international community, something that the IDF and the Israeli authorities are more than willing to meet. We understand that it does disrupt the battle rhythms inside the Gaza Strip for our soldiers, but we are also absolutely committed to ensuring as few civilian casualties as possible, and that much needed aid gets to where it deserves to go. The IDF have continued to strike Hezbollah targets in the south of Lebanon. This is in response to anti-tank missiles and various other projectiles that have been fired towards Israeli positions, including several towns. Some houses, reported at least 90 houses have been damaged as a result of shelling coming from Hezbollah. Meanwhile, earlier today, Hezbollah fired an anti-tank missile which hit a church in the Palestinian Christian city of Ikrit, and at least one civilian has been injured. The IDF have not commented on that incident. Very, very interesting, because the IDF are routinely accused by the international media of intentionally hitting churches, something the IDF say they absolutely do not do. In fact, they operate with particular sensitivity to all religious sites. And finally, because we do love some good news, so here is some good news. Despite the fact that Israel is in the third month of a war, Intel, that is the major chip producers inside computers, have announced that they will be opening up a factory in Kiryat Gat inside Israel. This is an investment worth $25 billion, which just goes to show that Israel is a resilient country, our people are resilient, and that the international high-tech community still have a lot of faith and believe that if you're going to invest in high-tech and solutions, this is the place to do it. This was made in an announcement by Intel and the Ministry of Finance earlier today. So at last, everybody, some really good news. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. But if you're looking for something to do on Boxing Day, look no further than our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is at the Israel Brief. Our Facebook community is at Lotl Site, LOTLSITE. Give us a like, a share, a follow. You guys are pros. I don't need to tell you what to do. And we are on X at Lay of the Land 5. So I want to wish you a wonderful rest of your day. I know many of you are having a public holiday around the world. And remember, guys, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye for now.